Bienvenidos al Vodcast 8.2, el imperfecto del subjuntivo y C clauses. Welcome to Vodcast 8.2 on the past subjunctive and C clauses, which are if clauses. Student learning goals. Students will be able to form verbs in the past subjunctive and know when the tense is required. And you will also be able to use C clauses and hypothetical statements about present tense. El imperfecto del subjuntivo. So the past subjunctive of all verbs is formed by, first, dropping the ron, R-O-N ending, from the ustedes, ellos, ellas form of the preterite verb. Then we add our subjunctive endings, which look like this. Ra, ras, ra, ramos, rice, ran. This is our example. The past subjunctive of caminar, yo caminará, tú caminarás, él y usted caminará, nosotros camináramos, vosotros caminaréis, ellos, ellas, ustedes caminarán. You will notice that our nosotros form of the past subjunctive is always going to carry an accent, and that accent comes right before we add our ramos. We do have another set of endings. And in Spain and some other Spanish-speaking countries, they use these endings instead. And they look like that. Say, seis, say, semos, seisen. And here's an example of how that verb would look. La señora Medina exigió que le mandásemos el contrato para el viernes. I personally don't use the say way, I use the ra. So I will be using the ra in my examples and when we're in class doing activities, that kind of thing. But just know that this other set does exist, and this is actually more common in literature. So you might see this if you're reading some books written by Spanish speakers. We do have irregulars. So verbs that have stem changes, spelling changes, or irregularities in the third person plural form of a preterite verb, they're going to carry those same changes to the past subjunctive. So let's take a look. I have a list here. So pedir changes into pidieron in the third person plural preterite. So that pidieron part, the I, is going to stick with us when we go into the past subjunctive. Same with other verbs. So sintieron, notice that the E changes to an I. Durmieron, the O changes to a U. Influir, influeron, we have a Y in there. Saber, supieron, and then ir and ser, fueron. So notice those irregularities because those are going to stick with that verb when we conjugate it into the past subjunctive. Los usos. The past subjunctive is used in the same situations as the present subjunctive, except the point of reference is always in the past. Okay, so el jefe sugirió que fueras a la reunión. The boss recommended that you go to the meeting. Because this is a recommendation and it's in the past tense, we need to now use our past subjunctive instead of present subjunctive. So we take our verb, which would be our third person plural of ir, which would be fueron. We drop our ron and add ras because that's our to form. That's how we get fueras. Next example. Esperaba que no tuvieran problemas con el nuevo sistema. I was hoping you wouldn't have any problems with the new system. Esperaba, that is in the imperfect. So, because it is a hope, we need to use the past subjunctive here. Notice that tuvieran is irregular, right? We have that tuv stem, which is part of the preterite, and so we carry that into the past subjunctive. Buscábamos a alguien que conociera bien el mercado. We were looking for someone who knew the market well. Buscábamos, again, took place in the past. We were looking. So we use conociera, which is also in the past subjunctive. And finally, les mandé mi curriculum en caso que hubiera un puesto disponible. I sent them my resume in case there were an available position. So our third person plural form of haber is hubieron. So we drop that ron and add the ra, hubiera. The expression como si, which means as if, is always followed by the past subjunctive. Alfredo gasta dinero como si fuera millonario. Alfredo spends money as if he were a millionaire. Right? We have that como si, as if, and so then we need fuera, as if he were. Ella rechazó mi opinión como si no importara. She rejected my opinion as if it didn't matter. We also use the past subjunctive with querer to make polite requests or to soften statements. Quisiera que me llames hoy. I would like you to call me today. So it's that polite request. You could do this in a restaurant or, if you were at a store trying to be polite. Now we're moving on to C clauses. C clauses. C, which means if. So an if clause expresses a condition or event upon which another condition or event depends. Sentences with C clauses are often hypothetical statements. They contain a subordinate clause, which is your C clause, and a main clause, which we call the result clause. Positioning. The C clause may come first or second in a sentence, but note that we use a comma when the C clause comes first. This is just like in English. So, si tienes tiempo, ven con nosotros. If you have time, come with us. If you have time is our dependent clause, so we need a comma after it. But if we have it the other way around, iré con ustedes si no trabajo. I'll go with you if I don't work. Our independent clause comes first, and our C clause comes second, our dependent, so we don't need a comma there. So just think you only need a comma when the C clause comes first. Commonly used in hypothetical statements about improbable or contrary to fact present situations, the C clause uses the past subjunctive. The result clause then will use the conditional, which is what we just learned, how perfect, in Vodcast 8.1. See? And just to note, a contrary to fact situation is one that is possible, but it probably won't happen or it has not occurred. Okay? So here we have some examples. So these are hypothetical statements about the present. So as you can see, our C clause, that clause is going to use the past subjunctive. And then our main clause will use the conditional. So we have three examples here. Si ustedes no fueran tan incapaces, ya lo tendrían listo. If you weren't also incapable, you'd already have this ready. So in our C clause, we're using the past subjunctive, fueran. And then in our main clause, we're using the conditional, tendrían. And notice that because our C clause comes first, we have a comma, right, separating our C clause from our main clause. Our second example. Si no estuviera tan cansada, saldría a cenar contigo. If I weren't so tired, I'd go out to eat with you. So this is a hypothetical statement. So obviously I'm tired, right? Because if I weren't so tired, I would go out to eat with you. Notice again, with our C clause, we're using the past subjunctive, estuviera. Estuvieron is our third person plural form of estar in the preterite. Then we drop our ron, R-O-N, and add our ra to make it past subjunctive. And then our main clause, we're using the conditional again, saldría. And finally, si fuera una cantante famosa, sería Shakira. If I were a famous singer, I'd be Shakira. So this is contrary to reality, right? I'm obviously not Shakira, but if I were, I'd be her, okay? Ahora, práctica escrita en Google Docs. Por favor, escribe un resumen de 5 o 6 oraciones en español sobre lo que aprendiste durante el podcast. Incluye 2 ejemplos del imperfecto del subjuntivo y 2 ejemplos de C clauses con el imperfecto del subjuntivo. Entonces, yo quiero ver 4 ejemplos de cada estudiante, por favor. Y pueden usar ejemplos que yo hice en el Vodcast. Sí, es perfectamente bien. Y también escribe 1 o 2 preguntas sobre dudas que todavía tienes del imperfecto del subjuntivo o si clauses. Y por favor, hagan preguntas buenas y inteligentes, ¿ok? Y la fecha de entrega es el 21 de marzo y es el jueves que viene. Entonces, gracias y adiós.